Well, welcome along to Oulton Park, everybody, for round 2 of the 2025 Ferrari Challenge UK. We're here in Cheshire under beautifully clear skies, and our first of 2 races this weekend is coming up for you. A half-an-hour race plus 1 lap will be taking place very shortly indeed, and we'll repeat it with a separate qualifying session that will form a grid for another 30-minute race plus 1 lap tomorrow. The championship for this year sees the introduction of the Ferrari 296, the V6 engine car, replacing the V8 engine Ferrari 488 Evo, as we've been used to in the Ferrari Challenge UK for the last few years. So the drivers are trying to get to grips with the fantastic looking new 296. A few of the drivers also are new to the championship this year, so there's going to be lots to look forward to in this race. We also had a subtly different format for qualifying ahead of this 30-minute race. The conditions have remained warm and beautiful all day. The track temperature earlier on for qualifying meant that actually the qualifying sessions were slightly slower in terms of lap time than the free practice sessions. Air temperature has risen since qualifying. It's now up to 22 degrees air temperature, track temperature up to 29. So for a lot of the drivers, it's going to be warm out there, physical. But also, there will be, I'm sure, some tyre drop-off as well. It depends how they manage their tyres in this event that is coming up. So the cars are making their way out of the pit lane area. They'll shortly be lining up on the grid. And as we say, we've got a few new names that have joined the championship for this year. So we managed to catch up with a few of the new drivers that we see on the grid this weekend.
With growing grids, a switch to the new Ferrari 296 race car, and a healthy mix of familiar faces and new names on the grid, this year's 10-round championship is set to be one of the best seasons yet. John Marcar is one of 8 drivers to make his Ferrari Challenge debut this weekend. He's no stranger to high-speed activity.
Driving fast cars isn't an unusual thing for me. My day job is a motoring journalist, so I drive cars for a living. But in terms of competitive motorsport, this is the first competitive racing I've ever done. So it's a baptism of fire, and I'm going to enjoy it as much as I possibly can.
Callum Leatham is the latest competitor from Northern Ireland, hoping to challenge for the title.
I did some karting when I was young, but for 2 years, from 5 to 7. I've never raced, so during an actual race, I don't know how I'll go. First, second, or third would be nice. But for the first few races, I don't mind if I'm top 10, top 5. Would be nice.
Gilbert Yates is the defending champion, but he's under no illusions and knows that this season is likely to be more competitive than ever.
I think there's a few new young guys now, and I think they're going to be very quick mid-season. They really are catching very fast. Maybe it's time for me to hang the boots up.
In the Copa Shell class, Stephen Dobson is amongst the returning drivers. He's looking forward to getting his teeth into racing the 296.
The car is completely different. It's like a spaceship compared to the 488. It's so much faster, so much easier to drive. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
One new name in the category is Paul Dixon, although he has got some experience of the Ferrari paddock, having competed in the Club Challenge Support Series last year.
For me, it was really good. It was a whole season of getting to understand what it's like to be in the paddock, be in the pits, get used to the car, know what it's like on track.
One of the pre-season favourites in Copa Shell will be Mike Dewhurst, runner-up in the 2024 championship.
I mean, you've got to set your targets as just doing the best that you can. You do every lap as best you can, as quick as you can. So hopefully a strong start this year will put me in a better position at the end.
So there's some members of the class of 2025. Cars making their way out onto the grid. Mark Werrell chatting to you now. Delighted to say, joined in the commentary box this weekend by Johnny Palmer.
Good afternoon, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, the grid is fit to bursting right now. Conditions could not be better, but this racetrack is a real challenge, and 30 minutes around it. There's no real let-up. There are some longish straights, like Lakeside, like the run down into Lodge Corner towards the end of the lap, but otherwise you're so busy either turning the car or the lifts and drops of this topography circuit. Also, for Copa Shell drivers, they'll have a busy few laps if you qualified on the front row, because we expect them to be a little quicker than the slowest runners in Trofeo Pirelli. So it's about trying to get through that traffic as quickly as you can, Mark.
Yeah, there's a bit of sorting out to do because they had separate qualifying sessions earlier on. All the Trophy Pirelli cars will start ahead of the Copa Shell. Let's just look back at what happened in qualifying. Paul Simerson, he will start the race on pole position. So the cars have lined themselves up on the grid, and in blistering heat down there, I'm sure that we can head down onto the grid where Amanda Stretton is down there with Dave Richardson.
Thank you very much, Mark, and welcome to the grid here this afternoon at Oulton Park. It's Amanda and Dave on the afternoon rave in the sunshine. It's glorious weather conditions. I can actually feel the heat from the tarmac coming through my shoes.
Can you? Because I can't. I'm not quite sure blistering heat is what I would describe this. There is a cool breeze, but it is, of course, dry and sunny and warm. And yes, of course, the sun is making the track particularly warm. So the drivers are going to have to really work on their tyre temperatures in this race to preserve performance.
Now, I can see being offered warm wishes to Steve Dobson is our former champion, Robert Rees. Come on in here, Robert. I want to have a word with you. I'm not going to let you get away with this because I said earlier on that Robert Rees, I'm really thrilled to see you, but I'm disappointed that you're not in a race suit, friend. But how nice of you to wish best wishes to Steve Dobson, who, of course, was stablemate of yours last year.
I'm just wishing everybody the best wishes and a safe race and happy racing. That's all I could wish for everybody.
And, yeah, you're here in casual attire, so I'm guessing you're not jumping into a car for tomorrow, are you?
I'm not, Dave, no.
However.
Yeah, I'm just wanting everybody to do really well. However, I am missing it.
Good. That's good. There's hope there, I would suggest.
There is.
Lovely to see you,
Dave.
and thanks for coming down onto the grid. Robert Rees, then. Copa Shell champion from last year. Now, Amanda, of course, has been squirreling away and beavering away to talk to as many people as she can. I don't know where she's gone now, but I'm sure she's got something to tell us.
I do. I'm actually just behind you. I'm with Paul Dixon, who I just wanted to have a little word with, because as he's getting strapped in, I'm just going to jump in very quickly. But just to say, you're marching up. You're making some really good progress. You're obviously sort of settling with the car. This is your first season, settling with the car and enjoying Oulton Park.
Yeah, no, Oulton Park seems to prefer me to Navarra, so 5th on the grid today. Try and get through the first bend, see how it goes from there.
Well, listen, best of luck. Obviously, you've got a lot of traffic in front of you. How did you find the whole rolling start thing in Spain?
Yeah, no, a new experience for me, but I just need to keep close to the guys in front to have a better chance of getting them in the first bend. Try a bit harder today.
Well, listen, very best of luck. It's always nice to see new drivers taking part in the championship and, well, really beginning to learn what it takes to take part. Oh, I can see you, Dave. I'm coming up behind you.
I've heard about that happening with you, Amanda Stratton, and you were saying there how it's nice, new drivers into the championship, of course, but we have heritage, and the epitome of heritage is Paul Hogarth, former champion in the Ferrari Challenge, who, a bit like Robert Rees, Paul, it's a thrill to see you, but a disappointment to see you not in a race suit.
Yeah, I'm more vintage, I think, than the heritage, but never mind. No, it is a shame not to be in a race suit. When you come down and you see how wonderful it is, and these new cars, they look fantastic. And of course, they are flying, aren't they? So yeah, very, very envious.
I know you were talking just a few moments ago to Paul Rogers, of course. It was a fantastic, we had the 3 Pauls at one stage. We had Paul Rogers, who we're just in front of, yourself, Paul Hogarth, and of course Paul Simerson, who's returned as well this year. Yeah. So there's only one of those 3 missing.
Exactly, yeah, then one of the magic trio. The boy band needs to get back. They've got their direction. I've got no direction at the moment. So
Paul, it's lovely to see you.
All the best. Yeah.
Great to see you down here on the grid. As we continue our walk through this grid, then bear in mind this is the second round of the UK series. We kicked it all off in Navarra in Spain. And who has Amanda caught up with right now?
Well, I'm coming up the pointy end of the grid now in P4 with Joe Dean. Joe is another rookie. I think it's fair to say, Joe, you had a very steep learning curve when we were out in Spain. It was a real sort of baptism of fire for you, wasn't it?
Yes, unfortunate to be fair. In the second race, I had an incident that took me out on the very first lap. So just looking to learn from that today, and hopefully we can get a good start.
Now, you were going really well in practice and quali, and I think in quali you made a little mistake on the last corner here, because you would have actually been about 3 or 4 tenths further up had you not made that error. Do you think you can carry forward this experience and this learning into the race, and more importantly into overtaking?
I'd like to think so, to be honest. Obviously, as the race goes on, our tyres will drop off, and therefore our speeds. So honestly, I'm just looking to just make the most of it, get as much, as many laps under my belt as I can today, and hopefully we can just stay here or thereabout in this position.
Well, listen, very best of luck. Go well. The whistles are blowing, so it is our cue to be moving off the grid. Of course, we have got the front of the grid dominated by Gilbert Yates and Pranav Vangala. Now, they were trading poles and wins out in Spain, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these two. But a man who's not unaccustomed to winning races is, of course, James Collado.
Yeah, what a fantastic weekend James Collado had just last weekend. Many congratulations to you and your teammates. You are having the time of it in WEC at the moment, James.
It's been a pretty good start, to say the least. 3 out of 3 wins for Ferrari. And leading the World Drivers' Championship, manufacturers and teams. So, can't complain. But yeah, here in Oulton, it's the sun is shining. I'm just about to enjoy this race.
James Collado, of course, you've gone on to the heady heights of being a top Ferrari factory driver, one of many. But of course, you've raced here in Oulton Park, haven't you? And I've walked around the circuit, and actually it's a real challenge, James.
It's a mega track, and I keep saying every time I come here, I'd just love to be in a race car again at this track, because it's old school. You need bravery. I was going to say something else then.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a fantastic track, and I'm sure all these drivers love to be here. So I expect an exciting race.
Well, we're very much looking forward to it. I can't let you go without... We've reflected on the victory last weekend. The next event, though, James...
Le Mans 24-hour.
Where, at the moment, it's 2 out of 2.
2 out of 2, and we'll try and make it 3, but I think it's going to be more difficult this year.
James, thanks for being so candid. Really appreciate it. James Collado, then top Ferrari factory driver, who, of course, was victorious in Spa last weekend. That's about it from the grid. It's over to you guys right now. And that up there in the Tower of Power, it's Mark Werrell. And, of course, also there is yet another voice, Johnny Palmer.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Yep, so the car's ready to head off around this Oulton Park International circuit that we are on, which is just under 2.7 miles in length. So it's the full configuration that we're utilising. The final few mechanics just being asked to leave the grid, and we will shortly be getting our second round of the championship underway. So as the final few mechanics leave the grid, we're getting ready to head around the Oulton Park circuit. So it's a tight and it's a twisty circuit. It is, say, 2.7 miles as good as, but you get lots of elevation change through it. Challenging corners, some fast sections, some slow sections, particularly through the likes of Shell Oils and through turns 7, 8 and 9, the Britain's chicane, and even 10, 11 and 12, which is through Hislops. But it's a real challenge at this circuit, and will the drivers relish the challenge, Johnny?
It's also about momentum, and if you find yourself on the wrong line, either late in the race if you're catching some tail enders and needing to get through the traffic, or if you're 2 or 3 abreast on the opening lap. You might be forced into certain areas which you're not used to being in, particularly as we've had quite a lot of action throughout the course of the day, both from the Ferrari Cup Challenge and these cars. So there may be a bit of dust, a bit of marbles, as well as we call it, that pickup that has come off the Pirelli tyre offline, making it a bit like an ice rink. Let's have a look at the grid, Mark.
Let's have a look. Yep, so it's Gilbert Yates that starts on pole position, the reigning champion. Alongside him is Pranav Van Gala. Remember, those are the two drivers that secured victory at Navarra. Hamandra Pillai has Joe Dean for company on row number 2. Then as we move on to the third row of the grid, it is in 5th position Callum Leathan, and alongside him is where we see John Markar. And row 4 of the grid, Bal Sidhu has for company Fedor Samarokov. Then, as we move on to the 5th row of the grid, this is where we see the start of the Copa-Shell drivers. Paul Simerson qualified on pole in Copa-Shell, and alongside him is Mike Dewhurst. I'm sure they're going to have a season-long squabble. Next up in Copa-Shell is Peter Hunter, who has got Paul Rogers returning to the championship sitting alongside. As we move on to row number 7, on the inside of row number 7, the man who stepped up from Club Challenge to race in the Ferrari Challenge this year, it's the number 13 car of Paul Dixon, and he's got Steve Dobson alongside. Jonathan Satchell, another driver that returns to the championship for HRO in this year, has got Darren Howell for company on row number 8, and row number 9 it is Hussein Sirts that sits there, the Turkish driver, on the final row of the grid. So final bit of weaving being done to try and build a little bit of temperature into the controlled Pirelli tyres that everybody utilises. They work their way down in towards Hislops, and then from there they'll be up towards Clay Hill and the Daunting Druids. So very quickly, Johnny, it's going to be an exciting race, 30 minutes plus 1 lap.
It almost became very exciting for Joe Dean, I noticed, because he was weaving that frantically. He actually got a couple of wheels on the grass, so we'll have had to spend the next few corners just cleaning those tyres up. These are the qualifying tyres that are still on the cars. Heat cycle will have meant that they've gone down cool, and now they have to come back up to temperature.
So here we go, we get ready to go racing, round 2 at Oulton Park. So the car's just coming underneath the Warwick Bridge now in terms of colours. It's that yellow and red and black livery of Gilbert Yates that sits on pole position. It's black with white and yellow for Pranav Van Gala that's alongside. Row 2 of the grid, it's sort of almost a metallic burgundy and gold for Hamandra Pillai alongside the white and dark blue and lighter blue car of Joe Dean. Remember, all of the Trofeo Pirelli cars are starting ahead of any car in Copa-Shell, regardless of what their qualification times will be. So it's separate grids in reality for the pair. So lights are on the gantry, and we're about to get things underway here at Oulton Park as the lights go out and they charge their way up towards Old Hall Corner for the first time, and it looks as though it is Pranav Van Gala that has his nose ahead of Gilbert Yates and picks up the lead of the race. In 3rd place, Joe Dean runs a little bit wide, gathers up the moment, but that's lost him momentum as they head down through down through Denton's and down in towards Cascades for the first time.
But there was some contact there between Gilbert Yates and Pranav Van Gala, and it puts the yellow and red car back in front, but there was definitely a touch, and I'd be surprised if both wing mirrors are still intact on either car, actually. But Yates very late on the brakes. Also, Joe Dean a bit too hot through Ireland, so he's run out of touch wide. Let's hope he can get it stopped for this part of the circuit, which is Shell Oils. No, he's in the gravel, Mark.
Oh, such a shame for Joe Dean. He had a little bit of a moment heading round through Old Hall Corner and has a larger moment now as he skipped across the grass and unfortunately has made contact not just with the gravel trap but has gone into the barriers there. Race continues with localised yellows for the meantime. Gilbert Yates leads the way from Pranav Van Gala, but you can see in 3rd place Hamandra Pillai, he does have a very small amount of damage to the front left-hand corner of his car.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Joe Dean reappeared because he'd gone wide at Ireland. He was then, I think, sideways on the grass and might then have compromised the run for these two cars in 3rd and 4th as they approached Shell Oil's hairpin. I'm spot on about the mirrors, by the way. So the right-hand door mirror of Gilbert Yates has gone, and likewise it's been stripped from Pranav's car on the left-hand side. That was quite a big hit in the end. Maybe just folded back on Yates's car, but he did get the lead. Question is that going to have to be looked back on from the stewards? We'll wait and see.
Yeah, I think the early lead in Copa-Shell is going the way of Paul Simerson, so he's converted the pole position in Copa-Shell to the early race lead. But it does mean that with that incident down at the Shell Oils hairpin for Joe Dean, I'm afraid to say that the safety car is being crawled out, which does not surprise me because that car was very much in a head-on position. It was in the firing line, and it's impossible to try and recover it out of the way without a safety car. And I think actually we are going red flag in the end, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so the race time is paused. We only had 2 minutes of it, just short of that, in fact. But the race is going to be stopped. That will enable the recovery of Joe Dean's car and some bits of debris, no doubt, that litter the racetrack on the approach to Shell Oils, maybe at Cascades as well. And then we will do a full restart. We didn't have a completed lap, did we, for everybody as the Reds came out? They sort of greeted the leaders. So I would imagine we'd go back to the original grid just for a slightly shorter time than the 30 minutes plus 1 lap.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Yeah, I think absolutely that will be the case. So we just await the arrival of the cars back round onto the grid, and you can see the cars slowly working their way past the incident there. So quite rightly so, easing off the pace enormously and just being careful, you know. And as a driver, you know, when you've had a red flag, as frustrating as it is, you know, there's still work to be done there, isn't there? It's you know, trying to make sure that you cool everything back down in the car, looking for bits of debris on the track, because the one thing you don't want to be doing is running over any carbon fibre, any debris that's on the track.
Yeah, and that's difficult to spot as you're approaching at still a reasonable speed. I mean, generally in the driver's briefing, you're told to drop to, I mean, at least 80 kilometres per hour. It's probably even slower around a track like this. No hurry whatsoever, because there can be marshals out on track. There's also a medical vehicle down at Shell Oils Hairpin. There's a circuit vehicle in between the second and third place cars within this race too, and they have to do their jobs as safely as possible, particularly if marshals are coming down from post to attend to Joe Dean. That looked to be a bigger accident than maybe we called it at the time. He'd lost control of the car, unfortunately, coming out of Ireland, and then very easy on this really dry grass after so much sunshine we've had for weeks and weeks to just rotate the car. Still at that point, tyre temperature is building, and it's not like the qualifying session we had earlier on where you ease your way into that and slowly build the tyre temp. You've got to start racing straight away, and that has clearly caught 1 or 2 out.
Yeah, so the tyres, yeah, not fully up to temperature, and difficult as he's trying to get off the grass, but also trying to rejoin onto the tarmac as quickly as possible, and unfortunately, yeah, he's in the barriers. So whilst the cars are making their way back round onto the grid, let's go back downstairs to Amanda Stretton, who is with Dave Richardson.
Thank you very much, Amanda. You know, we don't want to see that red flag situation, of course. I know you've just been into the Joe Dean garage. What's the latest you can bring us? Is there any news?
It was fine, but obviously we're just waiting for a bit more information. That was quite a big hit. Obviously Joe was going out on cold tyres. I was chatting to him just on the grid about what amazing progress he'd been making and what he was looking to achieve in the race. So sadly, I think this might have just been a little bit of inexperience and exuberance that perhaps got the better of him, because yeah, just one little mistake there and obviously big consequences.
What I really want to do here, Amanda, and you've raced, I haven't, it's easy for me to talk about it, you've been in the driver's seat of these racing cars. When it comes to the Ferrari Challenge, the Ferrari Challenge race cars, and in particular this 296 car, the integral safety that's built into these cars is remarkable.
Colossal. I mean, these cars are incredible. They are built with the absolute everything we know about safety structures built in. You know, that's why racing cars are so incredibly stiff as well. It's not just the suspension, it's just the entire rigidity of the whole chassis. So yeah, so I mean, everything that is being done is done. They are incredibly safe, but yeah, we just hope for the best.
Racing is racing, and of course that's what attracts us to this sport. Of course, you can see that the safety vehicles are making their way down the pit lane. The medical teams are on site within seconds, and as we say, to the best of our knowledge, we think Joe is absolutely fine. As soon as we know any more than that, we will bring you confirmation. In the meantime, of course, the race has been red flagged. Now, I'm not actually sure whether we're allowed on the grid, you and I as presenters, but I'm going to jolly well try.
Well, I'll follow.
Andy, our cameraman, who's now going to... I'm going backwards. Ordinarily, we get the cameraman to go backwards and the presenters to go forwards, but...
We have just had news, though, that Joe has got out the car, so that is obviously great news.
Absolutely great to hear, and right, we'll just make our way out there. Of course, as a driver, Amanda, all the adrenaline is pumped into you, and on the formation lap, you're getting everything together. You're imagining how the race start is going to go, and then all of a sudden, pew!
Now, it goes either one of two ways, because either you made a really great start, and you're going to be sitting there thinking, God, I've made this amazing start. How am I going to replicate that?
Yeah.
Conversely, you made a start that you think could be better, and you're going through all the scenarios in your head about what is it I have to do in order to make my start better. Of course, the one great thing is these guys have all got their driver coaches to talk to, because they know that a car has gone off.
Yep.
They won't have an idea as to why, whether there's any slippery surfaces, whether there's any debris on the track. So the fact that the driver coach is there to actually sort of tell them what they need to know, it means that they can go into that the first couple of corners on the restart and actually commit.
Thing is, you know, the bond that a driver has with his driver coach reaches so much more than just racecraft, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah,
this relationship.
You really have to trust them. It's fully, it's full trust, because of course the driver coach is there. You know, they can often have an onboard within the car. They can actually see what the driver is doing and really give them some advice about how to improve things. I might actually just jump on and see if we can find somebody who can give us an idea of how long this is going to last, because obviously we don't want to be trying to interrupt drivers if they're just about to restart.
Okay, in the meantime, I'm going to do exactly what I shouldn't do, and that's go out on the grid and see if we can get away with this. To heck with it. We are what we are, and bear with. We will do what we can. We're certainly not going to disturb any drivers because, of course, they're going to try and get themselves into the zone and get ready to go back racing again. I know Amanda is speaking to race control, and she will bring us news literally as soon as she has it, which is
that it shouldn't be too long. There is a bit of a barrier repair that needs to happen.
Okay.
So.
While we've got the opportunity to do so, and we're looking head on at Gilbert Yates' car, Gilbert's and Pranav are having a real ding-dong battle, weren't they? Some of which we can see the...
Yes, well, there's a casualty for Gilbert's right-hand mirror and the reflecting casualty for the left-hand mirror on Pranav's car. So, yeah, I might go and just step in and see if Gilbert feels like having a chat.
You're brave. You are brave.
He can only say no.
Yes, and I'm sure he will.
Gilbert, are we good to talk to you?
Yeah, I'm getting out.
He's getting out. Okay, right. Well, I'll wait for him to get out then. Hold on, you might need to unplug your helmet. I hope he's not getting out just on my account. Great start, but you lost a mirror.
Yeah, I think Pranav hit me before the lights went out on this side, and then I think he maybe jumped the start, and then getting back down, he seemed to lose grip, and I've not been inside, and yeah.
Oh, great. Well, we'll go and talk to him now about jumping the start as well. Didn't actually get to see any of that. But did you see any of the melee that was going on behind you?
No, I just seen the car in the barrier when we came back round. It's quite bad.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a barrier repair that needs to happen. But anyway, what did you learn from that first start?
Well, I didn't jump the start, so I didn't learn anything. So I didn't.
Right. Well, you've learned how to start the next time then.
Yeah.
Jump it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well.
Well, I have some more news. Joe Dean is perfectly fine. Absolutely is fine. So that's the best news that we could have. He's absolutely fine. We're just waiting to ascertain whether we need to make some adjustments to the barriers before we will restart the race. When we restart the race, Amanda, it's going to be side-by-side grid formation once again because we were under one lap.
Absolutely, exactly.
Ha-ha.
So
You know
now
what
you
that
can.
means? I'm going to have a word with Pranav Vangala if he will speak to me. Pranav is perhaps the most polite, delightful individual. Pranav, it was nip and tuck going in and down the hill there. Give us it from your point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I got away with a good start, and then, was able to pull ahead into turn one. I think after that, I was watching my mirrors the whole time, and as I then went into Cascades, I think Gilbert sort of came up my inside, and there was space. So I guess that was why we both lost our wing mirrors. I wasn't quite sure what happened, to be honest. I thought I had the inside line. I guess there was a gap, and as a racing driver, if there's a gap, you can't blame someone for taking it. So.
Do you know what I love about both you and Gilbert, and that is you're absolutely 100% fair. You're racing drivers. You want to win. You're both hugely competitive, and there was half a gap, wasn't there, Amanda?
Well, we didn't actually get to see whether there was a gap or not, but Gilbert seemed to think though that you may have jumped the start.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the lights go out, and I went. I'm not sure if I jumped that. What I may have done was not overlap properly, but that I'm not, again, I'm not sure. You know, you're like looking there, you're looking next to you. So, yeah. Anyway, in any case, like it's all reset now.
It's all reset.
Absolutely. You know, from our point of view, the value for money is the fact you're going to go and do it all over again.
Exactly. So hopefully I can give you guys as thrilling a spectacle, ideally, all, you know, within the rules.
Pranav, having taken your first win in the Ferrari Challenge, as indeed you did when we were in northern Spain, how hungry does it make you to repeat the top step of the podium moment?
Oh, it's an incredible feeling. I would be lying if I said anything otherwise, right? So I would love that. But, you know, Gilbert always puts up a fantastic fight, and I spent last season mostly behind him. So all I can do is aspire to change that this year.
Well, go well, Pranav, and thank you for talking to us. Wonderful. Look, here comes Peter Hunter. Just when we were hoping that Peter Hunter would appear, so he does. Peter. Yeah, it was very intense right at the start of that race.
Yeah, no, I'm going to play the lottery tonight because I guess that would happen this morning.
Okay.
Because in their infinite wisdom, they decide to put slower people ahead of faster people to mix it all up instead of... it's just stupid.
Well, at the end of the day, it was, you know, it was how it was in Spain, of course. But talk us from your point of view, because you're one of those drivers that always sees the start as an opportunity to make hay while the sun is shining.
Yeah. So, luckily, I was on the inside, and I just wanted to stay on the inside. So, after Navarra, I saw everyone was trying to not emulate doing what I'm doing because I'm not like that, but they were trying to get in the middle, and I thought I could see everyone just edging too far out. So I thought I'll stay on the inside, more on the inside, and kind of lunge in, and that's what happened, and we could push people out. And then I settled into it nice.
Yep.
Nice and easy. By the time we were down to Cascade, settled in really nice. Coming up to Shell, and that shower of shite just happened. Sorry.
Apologies for any colourful language from Peter Hunter, which you will have come to expect from this young man. But tell me, you know, at the start of the race, you've got the formation lap. Of course you have. You're behind the safety car peels off, then it's down to you guys. How long from that point does it take you to get those tyres up to proper temperature, Peter?
I don't know. I don't really think about it.
I'm going. It's over to you. It's over to you.
Can you actually feel it? Can you feel it? Can you feel the grip? And can you?
Yeah, no, it's yeah, you can. It's a bit skatey on corner one, and then Shell, very, very skatey. But again, you've just got to have big balls and send it. And unfortunately, that's what happened. And bit poor. I think it was Joe bit him in the arse. And it's a shame because of stupid decisions this morning. Now some poor kids like absolutely ruined his car.
I'm not sure though that Joe. I'm not sure that Joe necessarily would have been in a particularly different situation. Perhaps further in the middle.
Yeah, I think if you're racing right up at the front and you've got the likes of me, Simo and Dewars on your ass, it's tough. You're under pressure all the time, and then that's when accidents happen. Instead of giving a little bit of leeway and letting us like run on, it was just a stupid decision all round.
Well, decision that's been made, but thank you for your very candid thoughts. We always appreciate it. Lovely to hear from you. I'm going to head down this way, where Dave is. No, I'm not. But I think actually we need to have a quick chat with Hamandra. Yes. Because I'll just leave you standing there for a minute. Because of course, Hamandra, I'm going to jump in and have a little chat with you if that's okay. Because of course we saw you last year, but we never saw you. We still saw you when we were in Spain. Yes. But it's great that you're back. And this, of course, is the first experience you've had of the new 296. You seem to be really getting to grips with it.
I mean, the car is a lot different than last year. I mean, much easier to drive and to a certain extent, but it is blistering quick. I mean, you have to be careful with one of these. Yeah, it is. I mean, but it is a fun and joy to drive. Smaller cockpit, so it's a bit of a struggle to get in and out. But overall performance, brakes are better, acceleration is super quick.
Had you done any testing in the car before you came here?
I did a test at Silverstone about a month ago. Just to make sure that I know what I'm doing today, because it is quite a jam-packed day and it's tiring as well.
And of course this track as well, I mean it's particularly unique with the set of challenges that it presents because it's narrow, it's very undulating. You've got the straights aren't that long before you're into the next sequence of events.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean it is a very bumpy track as well. I think the key is just brake in a straight line. If you have any lock on and you brake, I think you're going to end up in the grass or maybe worse. So just take it easy, I guess.
But listen, you're smiling. You're obviously enjoying yourself.
I mean, I'm enjoying that I don't have to race yet. 30 minutes and this is tiring. So yeah.
Okay, well, you can just chill for a little bit. Right, David, let's go and find you. I don't know. There he is. He's right. He's behind me.
Yes, thank you, Amanda. The reason I'm behind is because Callum Leatham has actually left his car. And I just wanted Andy, my cameraman, if he can get right in there, he'll be able to get a very good look at the dashboard here. And I just want to reinforce the safety of these cars because you can see a big screen on top of the dashboard above the air vents. And basically, that is the rear view mirror on these cars because there's a huge safety bulkhead right behind the driver, which means that you cannot have an interior rear view mirror because you have to use that screen and cameras, which the drivers tell me is a more immersive rear view than they would have got with a traditional mirror, and it's all because of driver safety. So I just had the opportunity to jump in there and have a look at that. I mean, it's a fantastic designed racing car, of course, the challenge car, the all-new 296 car. And I don't know at this point, from Amanda and myself, quite how long we're going to be down here, but I know that both Johnny and Mark up there in the commentary box have got more to add, and I don't doubt, gentlemen, that you will be coming back to us before the race resumes.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, we've heard very similar to you in that it's going to be a 10 to 15 minute delay because of that incident there that befell Joe Dean. So I think we can replay the start, Johnny. Maybe just talk us through the start of that race before the incident occurred.
For me, there was a bit of confusion because normally, well, I can't quite see the grid hatchings, and they're complicated here because of the bike racing that takes place with success at Oulton Park. But I thought Gilbert Yates was just a little bit too far over to the left. That meant that Pranav got the jump in the right position on the grid hatchings. Whether he went too early, I'm unsure because we couldn't see the lights from this angle. However, a better run out of the first corner, and this was the dive just after Denton's from Gilbert Yates down the inside. Pranav Vangala tries to close the door, but just that little bit too late. And it's not only door mirrors that go flying, but quite a bit of other debris. That might be where the wheel damage has occurred on Pranav's car, at least according to Peter Hunter, as he worked his way past before chatting to Dave and Amanda. And then down at Island Bend, Mark.
Yeah, running wide was Joseph Dean on the right-hand side coming round through Island Bend. He's trying to take his time and be careful rejoining the circuit, but just as he rejoins, of course, he then hits the tarmac, which offers up different amounts of grip to the grass. And I think what it did was he probably had a tiny bit of throttle on as he got onto the tarmac off the grass, and it spat him from the right of the circuit to the left into the barriers. The one good thing is we saw him walking away from the car in towards the medical vehicle purely for what is always a precautionary check. Any impact accident, the driver always has to go to the medical centre, just largely to fill out some paperwork in most cases. And you can see as he's walking away, he's chatting to the officials there. And actually, considering he's just had a bit of an incident, he's always smiling as he got into the car. So I think he was just, happy that all was as good as it could be. And, considering he went from one side of the circuit to the other, I don't think anybody else really made contact with him, because sometimes when a car does that, it can end up with two or three making contact.
Yeah, there was a bit of damage maybe that we spotted on Hamandra Pillai's car, who we've just spoken to actually, and he didn't seem too concerned about that, but I was wondering where Joe had rejoined the circuit, and then that might have compromised one or two following heading through there. The Armco barrier is designed to give. It's three layers of relatively thin metal with struts behind it, but it's designed to cushion the blow rather than be a hard stop, because there's sometimes concrete wall at racetracks. Here, the Armco, and that's the bit that's now been compromised, but it is designed to do that, to try and mean that the landing area for the car is as soft as possible. Sometimes that can ping you back into the action straight away, but thankfully the car continued to rotate into the gravel trap. It's done quite a bit of damage to the front of Joe's car, but the main thing is he's got out of the car. It seems unaffected by it, and that's credit, as Dave was saying, to the internal crash structure of these brand new 296 cars. Yeah, and also, of course, the safety of the barriers out there as well, and they need to be in a fully vertical position. If they're not fully vertical, there's no way we can go racing. Well, whilst that incident befell the unfortunate Joe Dean, he did supply a really good insight to us earlier on today as to what it's like to ride on board in a qualifying lap on a 296 challenge car around Oulton Park.
So here we go over the start-finish line, flat out in 5th gear as you head up towards Old Hall Corner. Heavy brake, down to 4th, pitch the car in, pick up the curb on the exit, but don't run too wide as you then run flat out down towards Denton's. Flat through the kink, brake, down into 3rd gear for Cascades, and key corner. Make sure you are clean off this corner because you'll carry all of that momentum as you head along Lakeside. He ran a little bit wide there, but he'll be shifting up to 5th gear as he heads along Lakeside and up towards Island Bend. 5th, but just with a dab of brake as you pitch the car in, and then move the car about 3/4 of the way over to the left, down to 3rd. Try and V the corner off so you can get on the throttle as soon as possible and fire the car out of Shell Oils up towards Britain's. Holding 4th, right on the rev limit, occasionally up to 5th, but you're back down to 3rd midway through the corner, and then pick up the throttle again as you head out of Britain's, over Hilltop and on towards Hislops, up to 5th gear as you head down into what is a heavy downhill braking area, down to 3rd, pitch the car in, pick up a bit of curb, but don't leap over it too much, watch the tyre stack on the left. Start to head towards the right, a small dab of brake or a short lift as you then head out of Knickerbrook and start to head up the hill, up towards Druids, up to 5th gear, and as you head through the kink towards Druids, brake, down to 4th, double apex right-hander, certainly pick up the first apex, pick up the second, and then as you head past a little bit of traffic, you'll be up to 5th gear as you head up towards Lodge Corner. Again, heavy braking area, down to 3rd, concentrate on the exit of the corner again to make sure you fire the car out and over the start-finish line. That is an onboard lap of the Oulton Park International Circuit, all 2.692 miles of it, and that was from the number 12 car of Joe Dean, representing Stratstone Colchester. So, it looks hard work, doesn't it, when you're on board? There is very little respite, as you alluded to. You know, it's a warm day. It's a 30-minute race plus an extra lap. It's very, very physical. These drivers are going to know that they've done a race around here by the end of the day in these warm conditions.
I think 30 minutes at Navarra was busy, but this is, you know, you've got the topography that is fighting against you. So you've got the G-forces, you know, several times your body weight up and down in the car, but also left and right. What have these cars got? 690 brake horsepower?
690 brake horsepower, yeah.
So, I mean, I've heard the phrase jet fighters in a gymnasium before. You've got so much power underneath that right foot, but it is about the suitable application of it because the confines of the track are close in, particularly, you know, at the point where the marshals are working hard now down at Shell Oil's hairpin, where the damaged Armco is just behind the tractor, which is working hard as well. There's obviously been a bit of fluid that has been dropped by the spinning number 12 car. You know, there's a bit of wide expanse here and there, but it is few and far between. When we go to Silverstone later on in the year, that's a much more forgiving circuit. Yeah. There's still gravel traps, but if you do make an error, generally you can fall off the circuit and still have enough asphalt to recover a situation. You just don't have that level of insurance here. There's so much jeopardy around every single lap. And the thing is, you might think, oh, come out of Lodge, dearly, excellent, completed a lap. The next corner, Old Hall is on you straight away, and it's 30 minutes of that relentless action.
Yeah, it's almost holding your breath, isn't it, for 30 minutes? There's no time to breathe. But it'll give us time to breathe if we go back down onto the grid, where I think Dave Richardson and Amanda Stresson are.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're just looking at this 296 Challenge car, which, if you consider that this is a blank canvas, the artwork and the design that goes into these cars is absolutely remarkable. Now, they're all beautiful. I've pinpointed Paul Rogers' car here because of the animal depicted on the side, Amanda. Explain that to us.
Well, it's funny because we were looking at, obviously we always talk about the liveries of the car, but we don't necessarily talk about the liveries when we're on air because we're talking about the other stuff. But this is the most incredible livery. It picks up really well on screen. But, you know, from when you're close up, it's really quite hard to see what this is. But when you actually stand at a distance, you can see that this is actually the head of the fox, and it's wonderful to see the sort of creative way that the drivers and the teams have come up with liverying their cars to differentiate them, because as Dave said, they are actually blank canvases. Of course, we actually highlighted Jonathan Satchel's car and the Morse code, which is depicted in the stripes at the front. So really clever way that these guys actually work on the livery of their car. But it's great news because everybody is actually starting to get their helmets on now, Dave.
Paul, this is your beautiful car that we've just been saying how much we love the livery. How much of this was your design depicted and then created, perhaps by somebody else?
I don't know if you remember, we did the Mondial in Imola 2 years ago.
Of course, I was there.
Yeah, and we were with AF Corsa in a sort of a big, massive marquee.
Yes.
And we had the Japanese drivers next to us. And the Japanese guy had this colour, which I think is Hong Kong violet kind of based.
Oh, right.
And I kind of took a few pictures and I gave that to my designer.
Wow, now we've got the secrets.
What's the relevance of the fox?
I just love foxes.
Oh.
All right, but that's fine.
Incidentally, we ought to say, big well done to your driver coach, Charles Rainford there, who was victorious just last weekend in another racing series we're not going to talk about, but he was victorious, Paul. So that must give you a bit of a boost as well, Paul. He's a good guy. Well done, Charles. Oh, to heck with it. If I'm going to get fired, I may as well get fired properly. Many, many congratulations. Are you whooping his bottom now to make sure he does well?
That's it, exactly. You know, he's done a fantastic job in qualifying. He took last year out, so to be in that top 4 is really good. Obviously, the Shell category is extremely competitive this year, so we've got a plan for this next race start after learning from the last one. So we'll see. Paul will be one to watch.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Paul, very much. So there we have it.
It's really great, isn't it? Because, I mean, we talk about the driver coaches, but the driver coaches actually are driving. They've actually got, you know, sort of current, sort of really present experience as well. So they know exactly what the drivers are going through. And because they can actually talk it through with them, they can bring them on so much quicker.
We can see you've got Sean Doyle there and Chris Diamond, who are another 2 driver coaches. They're on the Jonathan Satchel car at the moment. Let's wander over there. We've still got a moment or two, so we'll use every bit of those moments that we can. And Darren Howell is driver of this beautiful yellow and blue car. Darren, we're just talking about the beauty of these 296 Challenge cars, and from that we got to talking about driver.
How beautiful you are.
No, we didn't. I promise you, I didn't say that. But we got, yes, Amanda did. We got to talking about the relationship between driver and driver coach, which is critical, isn't it, Darren?
Very much so, yeah. It means everything. I'm lucky I've got Sean Doyle. So.
Sean is top guy, a great driver in his own right, and is able to pass on that experience to you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You better get in the car, Darren. We're being ushered off. I think, Amanda, on that note, we'd better say that's it from us, chaps. We will go back to you now. Johnny Palmer and Mark Werrell up there in the commentary booth.
Thanks, guys. Yep, thank you very much. Good to catch up with a few drivers and cover a few different things off that otherwise, had it not have been for this stoppage, we wouldn't have been able to cover off. There's only so much we can bring you whilst we've got all the racing going on. So, yeah, the drivers now, it's a case of, alt control and delete for them, try and refocus again on this next start, which is still at the moment on our timing screen suggesting it's going to be original grid, original time allocation, 30 minutes plus 1 lap.
Although there's a message next to it, I noticed, that says 1 lap to go. I hope it's not a 1 lap dash because we're expecting a 30-minute race plus 1 lap. But yes, as you say, that's not been adjusted. I suppose there's less time pressure on a race day like this because this is the main event, if you like, although there are sessions billed for after this, not part of the live stream. We have everything covered tomorrow from the 2 separate qualifying sessions again. So tomorrow is treated like a new day. So 2 separate qualifying sessions for Trofeo Pirelli and for Copa Shell, followed by another 30-minute plus 1 lap race. But there will be another rolling lap, and that will be helpful, judging how much grip there may or may not be on the approach to Shell Oil's hairpin, with quite a lot of quick dry maybe being laid down to mop up whatever Joe Dean's Ferrari dropped.
Yeah, so understanding what the grip levels are around there. There's Hamandra Pillai's car. That's the car that suffered a very small amount of damage to, what was it, it's the front left-hand corner, wasn't it, of his car that suffered the damage. So the opposite side we were looking at there. I'm not sure whether it was maybe a little dive plane on that car, because the new 296s have small single dive plane, don't they, around each corner. But that will be there for a reason. You know, if he's knocked that off, that's over a 30-minute race, going to affect handling of the car, particularly as the tyres wear out.
Especially if the car's still got one on one side, but it's not on the other, then there's naturally an imbalance. It's maybe not too bad if both have been stripped away, but that would be a peculiar accident for that to happen. And we're still a bit puzzled as to precisely where that happened, but it might have just been because the cars were so close together during the rolling start, and you try and make room for one another, but it's tricky.
I'm wondering if, as Joe Dean came from one side of the circuit to the other, Hamandra was just there and just got caught by by the rotating car of Joe Dean.
Or he had to check up because someone in front of him was trying to slow down as well.
Yeah.
So there's that natural ricochet that you might find in a sort of typical motorway type crash where the guy in front sees what's going on, but you don't, and the person behind certainly doesn't either. So, but thankfully it wasn't as a bigger accident that it might have been. Joe Dean's Ferrari is going to need quite a lot of work overnight, I would suggest, but let's hope that he can get some action in on Saturday here at Oulton.
Well, that's the good thing about this series, the Ferrari Challenge UK, is that Ferrari come with all of the parts as part of that customer support package to ensure that they literally have most of the bits that you would need to rebuild the car. So, and they've also got spare cars as well. You know, should God forbid it not be repairable, I don't think that will be the case, but they do have spare cars that can be utilised, and that's a brilliant thing. Again, supporting the customer that's out here to enjoy motorsport. The marshals, the circuit staff have all done a brilliant job out there of making sure that the barriers are now in a full vertical position. And there might be the odd dint in them still, but they are now fully vertical, which is what we need. They, as you saw, you know, they were putting the quick dry down on the circuit, cement dust for want of a better word. I know it's not, but so that is all now dealt with as well. And now the drivers are all back in their cars, albeit one with a hand waving there that suggests that maybe, was that Jonathan Satchel had his hand out of the car and was waving as though there might be a small problem with the number 7, possibly.
May well have been. He's towards the back, isn't he, in 15th position. But if there are any concerns about any of those cars, then they perhaps won't be sent off onto their rolling lap straight away. I wonder how much of a hindrance this is going to be for, first of all, Gilbert Yates not having a right-hand door mirror. Now, he sits on the left, so you would have thought it's not going to be a big issue. But for Pranav, that is his natural mirror. However, they, as Dave has described, they have these internal screens now that are generated by a backwards-facing camera, which put an image as if it's a rear-view mirror on your dashboard. So maybe they more heavily rely on that. But if a car is over your left shoulder or your right shoulder and the mirror's not there,
you can't see it.
You can't see it.
Yeah, forward of the rear camera, you're going to struggle. Yeah, you're going to struggle. And that's a difficult thing, isn't it? Then if a car comes up on that blind side, you just simply don't know that it's there. So it does look as though there is a problem with Bal Sidhu's car, as it actually. Prince Bal that was waving. Yeah, so Jonathan Satchel is a little bit further back. So I think they've gone over and just double-checked that Bal is OK. And clearly there was a communication between himself and the marshal, who has now cantered back to his post. And therefore, 1 minute board held aloft, 30-second board held aloft. And we'll get the rolling lap back underway. So another opportunity to build some temperature into the car. Another opportunity, Johnny, because they've been sat in the cars with crash helmet on and them stationary for a period of time, to get some air circulating.
That's the other thing. Some of the GT3 cars actually come with almost a version of aircon on board. I don't know about the 296 Challenge, whether you can get some cool air blown into your face. You probably have to be in motion for that to operate. So it's just, they'll be all very grateful to finally be able to pull away from a warm grid. Because, yes, you've got that big bulkhead behind you, but it still doesn't prevent much of the heat dissipating from that 3-litre V6, 120-degree angle V6, which is used in quite a lot of cars these days. I mean, the GT3 version of the 296 uses that same block in a different state of tune. Even the Ferrari 499P that James Collado was winning in last weekend at Spa, that's the same engine. So I tell you, as a draw for a championship, to be able to say I'm racing a car that's powered by the same unit as the World Endurance Championship car, you would impress your mates.
And I also got my trophy from Oulton Park handed over by a Le Mans winner and the current leader of the World Championship, Drivers' Championship.
You can see why so many have signed up for this series this year.
It is a brilliant series, and it's a level playing field. I think that's the thing. You know, you go to other series and it's not quite a level playing field. This absolutely 100% is a total level playing field. All the cars identical. There's so little you can really do to them. Tyre pressures, maybe a little bit on the damping, rear wing angles, but that's about it.
Yeah, and then that comes down to your driver coach and also engineers that are looking after the car to suggest how a car might be turned out in a more productive way for you to go a little faster. But you're toying with, well, if you're very lucky, tenths of seconds, more like hundredths of seconds between rivals within this championship, and there are some that are very, very equal indeed. Maybe not all at the front of the field either. You were identifying earlier in the day some little battle packs further back down the grid, and they're going to be tussles both today and into tomorrow, I fancy.
And that's what makes that relationship between driver and driver coach absolutely critical, because it's the advice you get from the driver coach that builds the confidence, doesn't it, in the driver, the AM in reality, you know, not professional drivers, they're amateur drivers. And if you've got that confidence in what your coach is doing and you're listening, taking it on board, and even more importantly, putting it into practice, then that's where the time will really come from over the course of this weekend and the season. So safety car is going to bring them round for an additional lap. The clock has now started to tick. So in reality, we are going to be going for a safety car restart. But again, I think that's a sensible thing for the organisers. Let's just give them another lap just to get used to the conditions, and then it will be, rather than a side-by-side start, as it's a safety car restart, it will be single file.
Yeah, and that's just intrinsically more simple, I suppose, rather than having to bring them across the line on what is a narrow approach to the lights as well. And because of the drop away, or rather the climb up from Deer Leap to the flat, as the lights go out, actually you're going to struggle if you're in Cope-Shell to see those lights sometimes. We often say that about a stationary grid with a good entry of cars. You know, you're having to hold the car on the brake and you probably can't even see the lights, although I think there is a repeater on the Oulton Park Bridge. But there's just a more simple way of taking the start to a race. So this does count to the 30 minutes, but we're going to be properly racing next time around.
Yeah, well, that's what we hope. Safety car will be in. Usually what happens here at Oulton Park is when the safety car heads up Clay Hill, that's usually the end of Sector 2 when the safety car lights get turned out. Well, the safety car will only just be coming over Hilltop in towards the Hislop chicane and then through Knickerbrook, so it'll be a while yet. You can see the lights are still flashing away on the safety car. When they get extinguished, that's the indication that we'll be racing next time round when they come over the start-finish line. And remember, there is no overtaking until the cars reach the control line. They can be right there, but they cannot have changed position before they get towards the control line. So the safety car bring them in towards Hislops, up through Knickerbrook, and then hopefully the next time we see it, it will be further around the circuit than Clay Hill. And if so, when the lights are out, then we'll be good to go racing with this grid of what will now be 16 cars in the second round of the Ferrari Challenge UK. So safety car lights are still on at the moment, Johnny, which does suggest we're going to have another lap behind the safety car.
Yeah, so apologies for rather suggesting that we might be racing next time around, although the safety car is starting to pull away, but the lights are still on and the full course yellow boards still being shown. Safety car boards, it says full course yellow from our side. They can be flipped around according to the state of the circuit, but very definitely not going to go racing this time around. It is still one lap to go on our screen, but it said that for the last few laps. Again, because of the maybe a bit of change of road surface down at Shell Oils, then it's important, I suppose, to so that everyone's worked out just how much grip there is into a crucial corner. It's very high speed on the approach there. And if you've already got the corner leading into it slightly wrong, not as wrong as Joe Dean did, but you can be slightly offline and then find yourself on a bit of asphalt that you've not used all weekend. So just important for everyone to assess the conditions. And we might be racing at the end of this lap, but I don't want to commit to that.
Now, it also gives them a bit more time, doesn't it, just to warm those tyres up as well, because it was probably the washout wide from Joe Dean was probably all to do with cold tyres in the first place. And as he's learning the car, you know, you learn how to try and switch them on as much as you can on the formation lap, and maybe that was what he didn't do. So then 3 laps in reality should be enough, and we have now received confirmation that the safety car will be in at the end of this lap. So Gilbert Yates will look to try and scamper away from Pranav Vangala and should be in a better position to do so over the original start, because of course they'll be single file.
Yeah. And you would hope now that tyre temperature well and truly there, with a nice warm road surface, ambience reasonably high as well, and lots of chances to weave left and right and use as much of the racetrack as you can, sort of the middle third or a bit more middle half of it if you like, not wanting to go too far wide because of the risk rather of getting on the grass and potentially spinning the car, which we have seen not in this championship necessarily, but in others in the past, people spinning on a rolling lap because they're so vociferous in trying to build that tyre temperature. Here we go though, Mark.
Here we go then. We're about to have another go at getting round 2 of the championship underway here at Oulton Park. Safety car accelerates away from the pack. Gilbert Yates just doing his last little bit of weaving, and then when he decides to get things underway, once he's on that throttle, that's it. He's going to wait until, I would imagine, the exit of Lodge, and he's gone for it now. So they start to turn their way out of Lodge Corner, clamber up Deer Leap, and in reality we probably get the race underway with about 25.5 minutes on the clock still remaining. So Gilbert Yates leads Pranav Vangala. They've already leapt away a little bit from Hamandra Pillai, who sits there in third position. Paul Simerson has picked up the early race lead in Copa from Mike Dewhurst as they charge their way out of Oulton and down through Cascades.
Now, this is where Gilbert Yates has been very strong already today in free practice 1, as far back as that early this morning, which ran between 9 and 9:40. And Pranav Vangala tried to close the gap into that sequence of downhill section into Cascades. He's still with him, but just needs to be cautious not to allow Gilbert Yates to establish a lead this early on in a 30-minute race.
Yeah, Fedor Samarkov trying to be picked off by Mike Dewhurst at the moment. So in the early stages of Copa, Paul Simerson has got one of the Trofeo Pirelli cars between himself and Mike Dewhurst. The yellow and red and blue car of Mike Dewhurst coming under pressure from Peter Hunter that sits behind, the man who finished 4th in Copa last year and had that small incident earlier on, hence why the front of his light blue Ferrari is grey now across the bumper. Replacement parts having been fitted by the team for what was just a very small off and very light damage caused. He's got Paul Rogers not that far behind at the wheel of the car that we were hearing more about from him when he was down there with Dave and Amanda. So the squabble's continuing, but for Paul Simerson, this is just allowing him, isn't it, at the wheel of his car to break away a little bit in the lead of Copa Shell.
Yeah, this is kind of what he was suggesting to Amanda earlier on, was that he wanted to try and get by at least one of the Trofeo Pirelli cars nice and early. Now Mike Dewhurst can do the same, and if Peter Hunter is close enough, which he is, the sky blue car will slot ahead of Fedor Samarkov as well. So we've now got, but there's a spin, and that's Mahendra, isn't it? Mahendra Pillai, who's
Callum.
It's Callum, beg your pardon, it is.
Yeah,
apologies.
Callum Leatham that's had the spin, pointing the wrong way at Deer Leap. Sorry, Johnny.
No.
And he should be able to get the car going, but I think he might have to do a 3-point turn in the middle of the circuit. And thankfully, I think everybody has been able to get by and past him. So he drops to the very tail end of the field, Callum Leatham, and that will frustrate him because he had good pace, didn't he, at Navarra? Finished 4th in the first race. He was on the podium, wasn't he, in the second?
Yeah, and really good speed around that track. I think he's still finding his way to be confident at Oulton Park. Let's hope there wasn't any contact with any cars around him. But now Simerson has found even more traffic. He's right behind Bal Sidhu. And also John Markar in the number 16 car takes to the grass, actually, Simerson, to try and get a better run coming out of Shell Oils and in towards the Britain chicane as Bal Sidhu bounces over the curb but gets good exit speed over Hilltop.
Yeah, just keep an eye on Paul Simerson. He seems slow out of the Britain chicane, and now look, all of a sudden, from having broken away in the lead of Copa Shell, he's enormously under pressure. He's got Mike Dewhurst breathing down his neck as they turn their way through Hislops up towards the right-hander at Knickerbrook, and then fire the car out of that corner and carry as much momentum as you can all the way up the hill, Clay Hill, and up towards a daunting double apex right-hander at Druids. So Paul Simerson, it all looked to be going perfectly to plan for him, and in the blink of an eye, look at it, Mike Dewhurst is there, and also in his Pirelli wheel tracks not that far back is going to be Peter Hunter at the wheel of the light blue car from Stratstone, Manchester.
We may get a chance to revisit Paul Simerson's exit out of Shell Oils, but he did drop a couple of tyres onto the dry grass, and I just wonder whether then the drive out of Britain's was compromised because of the dirty tyres. Maybe. I mean, I'm guessing to a certain extent there, speculating, but the pace of the blue and red car seems okay again now. He just had to weather that storm. Mike Dewhurst will have enjoyed the fact that now he's got through the traffic that Simerson was able to in the early part of the race, and that battle is well and truly on in Copa Shell.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a battle that will rage all season between those two, and Peter Hunter as well. So Mike Dewhurst was involved in a great battle last year with Robert Rees running wide there coming out of Shell Oils. That was Pranav Vangala, yeah.
So he is pushing as well, feeling that maybe Gilbert Yates is getting a bit too far ahead. 0.6 of a second through the last split. Actually didn't lose a huge amount of time, but again, how damaging is that to the contact patch now that it's no longer clean rubber? So he might have to spend the next few corners cleaning up the Pirelli tyres, and this could be Gilbert Yates' opportunity to really extend the gap.
Good fights going on all the way down through the order. Jonathan Satchel has got the yellow and light blue car of Darren Howell not that behind, and then Darren Howell has got Hussein Sert not too far away. Now they are fighting for what will be 13th, 14th and 15th position. That will be 7th, 8th and 9th in Copa Shell at the moment. And again, that's one of those batches of cars I think I was alluding to after qualifying, that all lap times weren't that far away from each other.
Yeah, and I think once you've picked somebody or several people that are on about the same level as you, that's where the fun starts, really, because you know that you've got about the right sort of speed, maybe a similar driving style as well. So you can not really worry about the race leaders within your class, focus entirely on these 3 cars together as they all arrive into Lodge Corner. So this is for 7th, 8th and 9th places in Copa Shell.
Yep, so over the start-finish line they'll go. The black car with the Italian tricolore down the centre of it is Jonathan Satchel. Just behind him is going to be Darren Howell at the wheel of the very similar livery to he had last year as well when he was running in the 488, of course, which was part of this championship, the 488 Evo Challenge car. It's that yellow and light blue livery from last year, and then the all-yellow car that sits behind, which is Hussein Insert, who has got Ross Kaiser as his driver coach for this weekend. At the front of the order, Gilbert Yates is just starting to edge away slightly more now from Pranav Vangali. He was 0.4 of a second quicker than him last time through, Johnny, so lead advantage now up to 1.6 for the lead of the race overall, and of course the lead of Trofeo Pirelli.
Jonathan Satchwell's black car absolutely glued to the apex coming through Shell Oil's hairpin. That is a really rewarding part of the circuit when you get it right, and it kind of draws you automatically into the apex, pings you out the other side, and it's important then to get the car in the right position on the road from the left to the right in order to turn in correctly at the Britain chicane sequence. But yes, Hussein Sert's pace compared to Howell in front is similar, if not a little bit better, actually. So we've got to try and work out the best time to maybe pounce on Dareth Howell, but that could change in the next few laps.
Trying to work out the best time to pounce for the lead of Copa Shell is going to be Mike Dewhurst, who is still not that far behind the blue and the red car of Paul Simerson, who still runs 6th overall and leads Copa Shell. Mike Dewhurst has put a bit more daylight for my money, though, between himself and that light blue Stratstone Manchester car in the hands of former rally driver Peter Hunter. So not much, but he's slowly just edged away. So it's 2 for the lead and Peter Hunter just dropping away.
Mike Dewhurst just feinting to the left-hand side there, showing half of the yellow nose of his 296 Challenge car to just remind Paul Simerson that he's very much present. Of course, Simonson still has both wing mirrors intact, plus that rear-facing camera which presents on the dashboard as a screen, so he will be well aware with the bright yellow car that he is at close quarters. And Dewhurst in this phase of the race, we're in the middle segment now, does look a little faster than Simerson.
He does, maybe he is pushing that little bit harder, and of course, you know, it's so aerodynamically efficient, the 296 as well. You know, we know that a lot of the increase in the lap time doesn't come necessarily from the extra 20 horsepower, it's the more efficient aero on it, so therefore that's going to create a bigger hole in the air. The air's going to be dirtier behind, so Mike Dewhurst also needs to consider, yeah, he might have pace now, but if he sits that close to Paul Simerson, he's going to be overworking his tyres and might get more drop off towards the end of the race.
Yeah, and these cars don't like necessarily sitting in that hot air for prolonged periods, so he might, if he can't get by in the next 3 or 4 laps, let's say, actually drop away a bit just to allow time for his tyres to recover and then push again in the final 6 or 7 minutes. But that may, at that point, have allowed Peter Hunter to get involved with the battle, because the sky blue car is not that far away. A bit of squirm and slide there from Dewhurst. So, again, indication of how hard he's pushing.
Yeah, just got a very slight wiggle on there. I wouldn't have thought he lifted off the throttle. It was just correction to the steering input just to get the car back under his spell. Here we go. This is the recovering car of Callum Leatham, working his way back through and past Darren Howell. So Callum Leatham now is going to be up into something like 14th position at the end of this lap. Back to the lead of Copa Shell, Paul Simerson, Mike Dewhurst and Peter Hunter. And I think you're right, yeah, I think maybe on this lap, has Mike Dewhurst just dropped back a little bit more? There's certainly more daylight, isn't it, between himself and the number 77 car of Simerson?
Yeah, I think it's him struggling coming out of Lodge. He also didn't have the best exit out of Old Hall either, and I wonder whether the tyres already are saying, just take me easily, will you, just for the next few laps, although he can get nice and close in the braking point. The gap at the head of the order, by the way, is now huge. I think Pranav Vangali had a difficult lap last time around, a 1:39, so he lost 3.5 seconds to Gilbert Yates, so that's now north of 5 seconds first to second in Trofeo Pirelli.
Yeah, similar gap back between Pranav Van Gala and Hemandra Pillai, isn't it? 5.6 seconds there. We've still got Callum Leatham trying to work his way through the order. He's now caught up with the car of Jonathan Satchell. So you can see the yellow windscreen header is Jonathan Satchell, so we know that he is a Copa Shell car. The red windscreen header for those that run in Trofeo Pirelli. And for Callum Leatham, he's just going to have to wait until the exit of Nicker Brook and then see whether he can sort of prise the door open a little bit on the run up Clay Hill. Jonathan Satchell is not going to make it easy for him, though, because, of course, you know, it might be a car that's in a different class in reality. It's not going to affect his championship scoring, but he wants to finish as high as possible.
Yeah, and why should you not? You've all paid to be here, paid to be involved in this championship, and allowed to enjoy your afternoon as well. But actually, Callum Leatham is able to pick off the black with the Italian tricolore flag down the centre of the car, just before launch, in fact. So as they headed into the braking area, that was secured. And Callum Leatham up to, well, 7th within that category, 13th, though, overall after the spin.
It looks as though, back to Copa Shell, that Mike Dewhurst has had his respite and now he's in full attack mode again. Paul Simerson runs a little bit wide through Shell Oil's corner and just needs to make sure that he gets cleanly off it, which he appears to do. He might have triangulated it slightly there, but he is certainly under pressure for the lead of the category. So they turn their way out of the Britain chicane. Remember, in the opening event at Navarra, Paul Simerson won the first race of the weekend. Mike Dewhurst won the second, so they've both been very successful so far. Mike Dewhurst comes into this weekend lying in the championship's lead for Copa Shell, largely because he had a first and a second at Navarra, whereas for Paul Simerson it was a first and a third at Navarra, so early stages of the championship. But it is a short championship, Johnny. We only have 10 races for the year.
Yeah, and all scoring the same amount of points, although you get a point for starting an event, starting a race, and also there are points on offer for pole position and fastest lap. So a maximum of 18 available in each individual race. And Mike Dewhurst having, you might say, pressurised Simerson into a mistake during that second race at Navarra. And then as Simerson tried to recover the situation, he then had a spin through the very next corner, which dropped him eventually to third place. So that will be ringing loud in Paul Simerson's head as well, not to allow the mere presence of Mike Dewhurst's car to fluster him too much, but that's easier said than done.
Yeah, so for Paul Simerson, of course, you know, he maybe is a slightly more rusty. Drivers do get a little bit rusty over the winter when they're not getting the seat time, but of course Paul Simerson only did the Silverstone round last year, whereas Mike Dewhurst was in for the full championship season. Good to see Paul back in the championship, and he has really sort of picked up where he left off, really. So he just works his way out of Shell Oils. They are not really, despite the fact that they are squabbling, they're not really getting caught by Peter Hunter behind, and they're not really closing in on Balsidou either, who is just up the road from them, running in 5th position. So just to confirm, Gilbert Yates leads the race by 6.7 seconds from Pranav Van Gala in 2nd place. Hemandra Pillai is 3rd. 4th is going to be John Markar. 5th place is Balsidou, and 6th and 7th is the battle that we're looking for the lead of Copa Shell.
That was a good lap last time around, actually, for John Markar. His best of the race so far, so he's nibbled away at what is quite a large gap to Hemandra Pillai, 8 seconds or so. But as you say, these two are not close enough yet for Balsidou to be a concern. I'm impressed with Sidou's pace, actually. He's been walloping the curbs at times. So hopefully that doesn't come back to bite him with the tyres that we're talking about so much today. But the consistency from Bal has impressed me so far, and he's sufficiently ahead in that 5th position within Pirelli Trofeo. But we'll be possibly wary of where these two leading cars are in Copa Shell. Is that going to be a bit too wide for Simerson coming out of Old Hall? Mike Dewhurst might have a good opportunity to get very, very close at Cascades, Mark.
Yeah, he was just a little bit ragged, wasn't he, heading round through Old Hall corner, but Mike Dewhurst couldn't capitalise on the opportunity, so still, as far as he's concerned, rather frustratingly, sits there behind the Copa Shell leader in 2nd place in the category, and has just not been able to sort of unpick the lock yet to the lead of Copa Shell. Still time in which to do so, because there's still 11.5 minutes plus the extra lap. There's that sort of wider entry to Shell Oils again from Paul Simerson. I think that's just his preferred line, isn't it? So he can, you know, apex that little bit later and fire the car off the corner by getting on the throttle that split second earlier. It seems to be working for him.
Yeah, he's taking almost the NASCAR route, isn't he? Daytona style, that bit further up the banked turn, but it means maybe you can carry higher mid-corner speed, and then you get the ejection out of the corner and on towards Britain's. But it's fascinating to see, considering these cars are identical in terms of specification, Dewhurst does appear to be a little faster in certain areas, as now Callum Leatham has caught up with a few others and will have to carefully pick his way through these Copa cars.
Yeah, it's Paul Dixon that he's caught up with now, man who is having his second weekend of racing in Ferrari Challenge, having graduated out of the Club Challenge from last year. Callum Leatham will look to try and squeeze his way through, but I think he's going to have to wait probably until the run down to Lodge to enable him to do that. Callum Leatham has not that far behind him, and the next of the cars which will be squeezing its way through. So that will be Stephen Dobson waiting. Callum Leatham looking for the inside line on Paul Dixon. Paul Dixon sees him coming, just about gives him room. So that's another place gain for Callum Leatham. But the frustrating thing for Callum Leatham is that every car that he's overtaken so far runs in Copa Shell. He's not actually gained any more championship points.
As now Dobson thought about a move on Dixon, he may still get a better exit coming out of Old Hall and on the run down Avenue. Inside line maybe, no, he's not fully alongside, but now he's going to go to the other side of the racetrack, the inside line for Cascades. So Paul Dixon maybe lost just that little bit of concentration, wary of where the 25 car was going to go next. Dobson will have to sit and wait for his next opportunity.
Yeah, so just up the road from them, Callum Leatham might gain an extra championship point soon, because he's about to catch up with Fedor Samarkov, the wheel of the all-black car, for the lead of Copa Shell. Down in towards the Hislop chicane they go, and there's a spin for Balsidou just ahead of Paul Simerson and Mike Dewhurst when they turn in towards the Hislop chicane. And thankfully, Bal just waited until they'd gone by. A slight grassy moment for him, but he's lost 2 places as a result of that, and has very dirty Pirellis.
Yeah, and that's a shame, because as I say, he'd strung together probably 8 or 9 laps that look really good on the timing. So he'll be kicking himself as well. But there has been some steady progress made, I'd say, from the opening 2 races of the year in northern Spain to here in leafy Cheshire. And Balsidou has a foundation now to continue to build on his weekend tomorrow. So both of these cars move up a position in the overall order. It obviously doesn't improve their spots in Copa Shell. They're still first and second, but they now have a cushion of Balsidou back to Peter Hunter in third.
Yeah, it looks as though Steve Dobson was having another little nibble at Paul Dixon to see if he could wiggle his way through and pass, but again it did not work for him that time through. The white and red Ferrari of Paul Dixon still continuing to hang on to the position. They'll be fighting for 12th and 13th places respectively at the moment. And for Paul Dixon, he'll have his driver coach Jody Fannin in his ear saying, come on, keep pushing, do not let the car behind through. Equally as much Steve Dobson will have his driver coach in the ear, which is Rob West, saying, look, you've got to push, see if you can apply a bit more pressure. He might make a mistake, and if you can, capitalise on it, work your way through.
Are we about to see the third step of the podium in Copa Shell become a little more questionable? I think Peter Hunter was delayed by the spin of Balsidou because he's come at the end of the previous lap with a similar lap time. But that has meant that Paul Rogers in the bright purple car, talking to Paul on the grid with the Fox on the flanks, he's a lot closer now to third place Peter Hunter in the sky blue car. Callum Leatham with another to potentially overtake, and this is Samarukov. So Fedor Samarukov in the all-black number 88 car, the next man on Callum's list.
Yeah, and that is a Trophy Pirelli car as well, isn't it? Trofeo Pirelli car. So if you can get past Fedor Samarukov, then that will be an extra championship point gained for Callum Leatham at the wheel of his number 95 car. And of course, he was the car that had the spin. He flashes his lights, and is Fedor Samarukov going to let him go through? No, absolutely he's not, and why should he? So he makes sure he chops across the nose of the car, and for the moment he remains as the final car inside the top 10. The black car just coming over the start-finish line now.
Even though they're involved in a big arm wrestle, Paul Simerson and Mike Dewhurst, they've both just done their best laps of the race, so they're working with one another, maybe in a hope to reel in a few more of the Trofeo Pirelli cars. And actually, Peter Hunter settled things down for that third place now. So I do think it was the Balsidou spin that meant that Hunter had to maybe leap on the brake, certainly get off the throttle at Hislops. And Paul Rogers has got closer, but they're now lapping almost identical times. 139.3 for Hunter, 139.4 for Rogers. Leaders in Copa Shell right together again, though.
they're absolutely together as they head round through Hislops and on towards Knickerbrook. They're on lap number 11 at the moment. What do you think it will come down to, Johnny? Do you think it'll come down to a mistake, or who's looked after their tyres the best?
Well, there's always the element of tyres, of course. I just wonder whether Mike Dewhurst has been weighing up this, what have we had, 25 minutes or so of green flag racing, 20 minutes to this point. And is he thinking, right, my best opportunity is, for example, here at Lodge, and it might be one do-or-die manoeuvre, but he needs to make sure it's clean as possible. It's maybe, as Amanda Stretton was alluding to earlier, some late lunges. That's how you get past people here at Oulton Park, but you've got to be well aware that the person you're trying to overtake has seen you in plenty of time.
Yeah, so you can try it and it doesn't work. But if you do try and it does work, then you need that element of surprise. And if you do it late on in the race, there's no coming back from it, is there? You know, if you get through and it works, the car that you've just overtaken has very little opportunity to try and then work out where your Achilles heel might be. For Paul Simonson at the moment, I don't think there is much of an Achilles heel at all, because he has not really put a wheel wrong. So he takes that subtly different line in towards Shell Oils, which is what they're coming up to now. You'll see him take a wider sweep in towards the corner, but that's more to do with how he wants to exit the corner and get as fast off it as he possibly can, getting on that throttle a split second earlier. Mike Dewhurst just briefly raising the dust as they head up towards Britain's. 5 minutes to go, plus the extra lap, of course.
I think for Simonson, that route through Shell Oils, a slightly unconventional one, is fine when Dewhurst is more of a distance, but now he's right with him, so he had to stay close to the apex. Here goes Dewhurst. It's maybe just a tester, and I think it was, but he had just a bit of insurance on the brake pedal there, and that's perhaps the best place for Dewhurst to attempt another overtake. The problem is he's shown his cars a little bit now to Paul Simonson.
Yeah, that was a dress rehearsal, and yeah, it wasn't a bad one, was it, from Mike Dewhurst? But he did the sensible thing, I think, realised that he wasn't sufficiently alongside and backed out of the move and lived to fight later on in the remaining 4 minutes plus the extra lap. So we've still got Gilbert Yates leading the way. The lead advantage between himself and Pranav Fangana hasn't changed much. It's 5.5 seconds between the two, but in third place overall, Hamandra Pillai is now 11 seconds adrift of Pranav Fangana in third position. Over the start-finish line comes the lead battle for Coperchel. Paul Simonson twas ever leading it at this stage, but Mike Dewhurst will know there's only one lap he wants to lead. It won't bother him if he doesn't lead any others. He wants to lead the final one when the checkered flag's out.
Callum Leatham down the inside of Fedor Samarukov, but that won't work at Lodge Corner. These cars are in the same class, remember, so important for Callum to try and get ahead. The car behind looks a little smoky, I noticed. That's Paul Dixon's car. Not too bad as he passes our position in the commentary booth just before the first corner at Old Hall. Simonson now with Dewhurst a little more distant, does go deliberately wide at Shell Oils. I noticed that the indicator is now flashing on the left-hand side. That's purely by accident, I think. Shows how busy Mike Dewhurst has been in his office space.
Yes, he'll have been working overtime, won't he, Mike Dewhurst, to try and see whether he can unpick the lead of Coperchel, but Paul Simonson is not going to make it easy for him, both with good amount of experience in the Ferrari Challenge UK. Mike Dewhurst in particular with his exploits to finish runner-up last year in the category, a double former runner-up in it. Paul Simonson lies just ahead, so neither of these two have been a champion in Coperchel. And looking at the pace that the pair of them had, whether it be at Navarra for the opening two races of the season, round one of the championship, or whether it be here so far at Oulton Park, you would bet this is going to be a season-long rivalry between the pair.
We hope so, certainly, because yeah, if one car can take a win apiece all the way through the year, then it will keep the championship well and truly alive heading into that double-header at Silverstone. We've got a number of other MSV tracks to visit before heading to the home of British motorsport. There's Paul Dixon. I was slightly concerned about just some wisps of smoke from the rear of his car, but that seems to have sorted itself out now, so it can't have been anything too important. As again, Callum Leatham to the inside line at Lodge Corner, and he's almost drifting the car out through Deer Leap and back across the grid hatchings, but still can't get ahead of Fedor.
No, he's been trying, hasn't he? And he's always just come up that little bit short. So, well, there's time and opportunity still, but not huge amounts of them now, because we're into the final minute and a half of this timed aspect of the race. We'll then get the extra lap there on. So once the clock ticks to zero, next time over the start-finish line, the race leader will start the last lap of the race. Gilbert Yates, I think at the moment, will come over the start-finish line and head on to his penultimate lap of the race next time through, because he's sort of three-quarters of way around lap number 15 at the moment. So we should squeeze 17 laps out of this one. And for Callum Leatham, he'll be absolutely kicking himself for what we assume is a mistake, coming out of Lodge Corner and rotating the car through Dearly, because whilst he's overtaken cars, he's still last in Trofeo Pirelli following his spin.
Yeah, and looking at the best times, he has managed a 1:37 flat, which many other cars are struggling to do. So you've got the top three. Oh, but Fedor's gone straight on at the Hislop chicane, has to thread his way through the plastic barriers there, and that should give Callum the position, and actually does the very gentlemanly thing, rejoins in the safest manner possible, although right in front of car 25, which is Stephen Dobson.
Yeah, so he tried to weave his way through the barriers. You can't gain an advantage through that. If you wiggle your way through those barriers quickly, you can almost come out in the same position as you went in. But yeah, he comes out directly in front of Stephen Dobson, who will probably be less happy now that he's lost ground to the car that he was hoping to do battle with, which was Paul Dixon. So we've got literally a matter of seconds remaining on the clock, which means that for Paul Simonson and for Mike Dewhurst, they'll be heading on to their final lap of the race next time through, and that's what Gilbert Yates, our overall race leader, will shortly be doing, who has seen his lead advantage come down. Last time we picked up on it, it was 5.5 seconds, and Johnny Satchel's got a problem. Jonathan Satchel has retired there out on circuit on the approach towards the Britain chicane, but the clock is at 0. I'm sure, Johnny, they'll just cover that with localised yellows.
Very untidy exit, unfortunately, for Mike Dewhurst. As you were checking the timing screen, he was all over the grass coming out of Shell Oil's hairpin. I thought that might have actually taken more time away from the yellow car than it has, because they're still right together. Fedor Samarukov is now off the road, which looks like Island Bend on the run into Shell Oil's hairpin. But the race leaders on their final tour then, the clock is at 0. These two will go to the control line and go around again, of course, because the race distance is governed by the overall race leader.
Yep, so we've got another lap for this fantastic battle, as it has been pretty much all race long between Paul Simonson and Mike Dewhurst, not just for 5th and for 6th overall, but for 1st and 2nd in Copa Shell. So they now head over the start-finish line onto lap number 17, which will be their final lap of the race. Still nose to tail, and Paul Simonson is really, I would imagine now, starting to feel the pressure and maybe just casting his mind back towards Navarra as Mike Dewhurst fires one up the inside going in towards Cascades and sneaks his way through. You can see the car wiggling around on him because he was so late on the brakes, which allows Paul Simonson to come back at him as they head along late side, and Simonson will have the inside line for Ireland. That'll be the outside line as they head towards Shell Oils.
Terrific racing though, and good fair stuff between the two of them. Then unfortunately for Simonson, he found himself on the wrong side of the road where all the marbles were. He tried to turn in at Island where he thought the tyres were gripped. There was a big squirm though from the number 77 car. Still got opportunity to get by, but unfortunately Mike Dewhurst has proved to be very, very strong into Hislop, so will he have the advantage? Meanwhile, at the head of Pirelli Trofeo, Mark.
It is going to be a win for Gilbert Yates. He comes over the start-finish line and wins the first race this weekend, the 3rd race of the season in the 2025 Ferrari Challenge UK. Pranav Vangala finishes in 2nd place, some 4.4 seconds adrift in the end. And then we wait rather the 3rd place car, which will be Hamandra Pillai. I did say, did I not, that Mike Dewhurst will only want to lead one lap of this race, the most important one. And if he left it till late, there'd be very little opportunity for Paul Simonson to try and recover him. Exactly, that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, you see this in formulae like Caterham's, I suppose. I didn't know it applied to the Ferrari 296 Challenge, but expert driving. Dewhurst trying to weigh up where he was strongest, and a terrific overtake at Cascades.
Yeah, so he comes through now to scoop up top honours in Copa Shell. A rather frustrated Paul Simonson will be disappointed, I'm sure, that he hasn't got the win, having led all bar one of the laps in Copa Shell. But it's early in the season, it's more championship points, and the two of them, I would imagine the way that they're driving alongside, that is just smiles and a thumbs up to both. They both thoroughly enjoyed that one. So they come through and complete the top 6. Balsidou has taken the checker flag in 7th. Peter Hunter at 8th. He will complete the Copa Shell podium. Paul Rogers on his return will finish in 9th, and the charge of Callum Leatham, he does net 10th in the end, because of course he did manage to squeeze his way through and pass Fedor Samarukov because of his grassy moment out there at Island Bend. But for Gilbert Yates, that is 2 for the season now out of 3 races.
And he will say that he should have won 2 at Navarra as well. He certainly had the speed to do that, but maybe just a bit of tyre management took that victory out of his grasp. But back on the top of, well, he was already leading the championship. That would extend the gap a little more. But I do think that he's not going to have it all his own way with Pranav Vangala as part of the entry. And those further down at the championship rankings, like Callum Leatham, they'll come back from mistakes like today. And I think Callum could have a very, very strong race here on Saturday.
Yeah, we say that they're all learning the car, and some of them are not only learning the car, they're learning the tracks, because generally they're learning motorsport. They've not competed previously, and Callum Leatham is one of those, and Joe Dean that we saw have the off and brought about that red flag, he's another one that's new to motorsport. So there's Mike Dewhurst, the winner of Copa Shell. He's making his way back round in towards the pit lane, where no doubt there'll be some celebrations, and hopefully we should be able to confirm some results for you very shortly as well for that first of 2 races, remember, that we've got this weekend at Oulton Park. The drivers will be, I would imagine, more than pleased to see the checkered flag and just open the door, let a bit of cool air get in, and grab some water, I would have thought would be the first thing. You could see how close that overtake was. Mike Dewhurst, he's still got the mirror, but it's folded back on the right-hand side.
Yeah, well, they're just means of measuring how close you are to a fellow rival, aren't they? That's how touring car drivers tend to treat them. And that can be easily fixed. Unlike the Gilbert Yates and Pranav Vangala problem, that might have to be a new door for the mirrors that they lost on the opening lap of a race that no longer exists, of course, after that was red flagged initially. But terrific racing, shows how much faith both Mike Dewhurst and Peter Simonson have in Paul Simonson have in one another. And I just hope that that continues into tomorrow. It certainly will be fascinating to witness another 30 minutes battling within Copa Shell.
So as the drivers and the cars arrive into the pit lane area, let's go down to Dave Richardson.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'm going to try and muscle in here because Gilbert's with his brother, is with his driver coach as well. This is young Tom. Just get out of it. I want to speak to the race winner. Gilbert, you knew just how feisty it was going to be between you and Pranav, certainly from the original start. Yeah. That second start, you just nailed it.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a good start and try and get a few cars between us, and that worked out okay after the safety car. So that was a good start.
What's really impressed me about your driving craft, and I don't know how much of this is your natural talent, how much it's your driver coach telling you what to do, and probably you'll explain, is the fact that you are just able to keep cool, calm, collected, and every single lap add another few tenths and maintain that and build that gap. Cool, calm, and collected, it looks like, Gilbert.
I'd love to say it's me, but it's all Tom. It's all Tom. I'm so nervous in the car, and you just want to keep driving the car so hard. But these cars, you can't drive them too hard. You have to brake light, you have to brake easy. You can't overheat the tires, so Tom's just in the radio constant telling me to back off.
And did you manage to, did you feel that your tyre strategy was the right one? Because it looked like I think towards the end it was very nearly 5 seconds margin you had.
Yeah, we just managed the target. Once we got a gap, we just managed the tyres and we just backed off, yeah, and just drove to the gap.
Well done, go off and celebrate.
Thank you.
Well done. So there we have it. Gilbert Yates then victorious. And I know Amanda Stratton, I don't know whether she's got to our Copa Shell winner already, but certainly she's heading in that direction.
Thanks, Dave. No, sadly, I'm here. Sadly, I haven't actually managed to find him yet. I'm not sure. I've been waiting down at his garage, and he hasn't shown up. So I'm going to be heading this way. I'm just going to wind out a second. There's a car. It's Peter Hunter. God, it would be Peter Hunter. Right, let's have a look down here and see if I can find him, because Mike actually drove like an absolute demon. If I can't find him, it'll be interesting to hear what Paul Simonson has to say. Is he here? No. Where? Right, okay, I can't find him. So we'll go back to the commentary, and as soon as I do, I'll let you know.
So thank you to a man who is now on a search and rescue mission to try and work out exactly where our Copa Shell winner has been. Let's confirm some results for you then. Gilbert Yates wins the first of 2 races here this weekend from Pranav Vangala, and third, completing the podium in Trofeo Pirelli, is going to be Hamandra Pillai. John Markar is there in 4th place, and in 5th place, it's the winner of Copa Shell, Mike Dewhurst. Paul Simonson was 6th and was 2nd in Copa Shell, ahead of Bal Sidhu, who was 7th, and Peter Hunter will complete the Copa Shell podium in 8th place overall. Paul Rogers was 9th. Callum Leatham recovered after his spin to finish in 10th position. Then as we move outside of the top 10, it was Paul Dixon in 11, ahead of Steve Dobson in 12th place. Fedor Samarakov is there in 13th, ahead of Darren Howell and Hussein Cert. Johnny Satchel had problems and did not see the checkered flag, and Joseph Dean, we know of his issues which brought about that red flag. I think as Amanda has managed to stride purposefully in the general direction now of our Copa Shell race winner, Mike Dewhurst.
Yes, I'm never knowingly under purposefully strode. Mike was down here because his car got pulled in to be weighed. So I'm afraid you weren't here to have your welcoming committee of absolute, incredible, amazing, well done. Because that drive was textbook.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a chaotic start to the race, and then yeah, we had to start single file, so Paul was automatically in front, and I just thought all I can do, there's not really any good opportunities to get a run on him, so all I could do is just keep the pressure on and on and on and on and on, and hope that he eventually made a mistake. And he made a little tiny mistake. He ran slightly wide, just gave me the chance I needed.
It looked like down here you were having a little look periodically. There looked like there might be some gaps. Were you sizing him up for quite some time?
Not there, because he was really, really good through Druids. He had that completely covered. But I thought if I sort of teased him on the way into the turn 16, I might get him in turn 1 if I forced him wide and forced him offline there. So I was trying just to put him off and get him offline so that I could get him. But yeah, in the end, tiny mistake. I mean, he drove faultlessly apart from that corner. He was half a car's width off the apex, and that was just all I needed.
Oh, it was incredible. What was your driver coach saying to you?
He was basically saying, just keep doing it, keep pressuring him. Eventually, he'll slip up and he'll get through. So I just kept pushing.
Oh, it was beautiful and a terrific move, and also holding it round the outside.
It's slippery around there on that outside line. Yeah, it's a bit off camber. It was a bit dusty, and yeah, had a pretty major slide round there. I could see him nudging back up the inside, and I thought, you know what, we'll have to, if we both go through. Is it? I can't remember which corner, top fast left. If we go through there side by side, that's fine, but we'll both go through slower, and then I've got the inside for the next line, so I just kept on it.
Well, many congratulations. You are Copa Shell winner.
Thank you, thank you.
Right, commentators, Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Amanda, and well done for catching up with Mike. When the lights went out, it was on the original start, Pranav Vangala, that picked up the lead of the race from Gilbert Yates. Running wide in third place was Joseph Dean. Then, as they went down in towards Cascades, though, Gilbert Yates snuck up the inside of Pranav Vangala. The two made contact. There was a small mistake from Joseph Dean, who got onto the grass coming round through Island Bend, and I'm afraid the car spat across from one side of the circuit to the other, put him into the barriers. That meant a red flag. It was a safety car restart, and when we got things back underway, of course, most of the Copa Shell cars were tasked with getting past some of the slower Trofeo Pirellis. Such was the way that the grid was formed over the course of this weekend. Paul Simerson got a really good start in Copa Shell and started to pull away. He actually originally had one of the Trofeo Pirelli cars between himself and the hard-charging Mike Dewhurst. At the lead of the race in Trofeo Pirelli, there was a small mistake from Pranav Vangala coming out of Shell Oil's corner. That dropped him away from the race leader, Gilbert Yates, who never really looked back from that. Spin from Callum Leatham saw him trying to carve his way back through the field, but most of the action was really at the sharp end of Copa Shell. That continuing battle between Paul Simerson and Mike Dewhurst. Callum Leatham was still trying to work his way through the order and picking off people, but for Paul Simerson, he was just focused on making sure he could hang on to the lead of Copa Shell. There was a scary moment though, as Bal Sidhu had an off just ahead of them as they went in towards the braking area for Hislops, and a lap later, the car of Mike Dewhurst showed his hand and almost tried to squeeze his way through to pick up the lead of the race. He came back though and just made sure that he did not make contact. There was lots of flashing of lights from Callum Leatham. He was desperate to try and get past Fedor Samarakov, because that would have been the first of the cars in Trofeo Pirelli he would overtake, but Samarakov made a small mistake and had an issue. He made a second mistake working his way through Island Bend, and that dropped him a couple of places. But in the lead battle for Copa Shell at the start of the final lap, there was a great move by Mike Dewhurst up the inside of Paul Simerson to squeeze his way through into the lead of the race. Simerson fought back as they went up towards Island Bend, but braving it out around the outside at Island gave him the inside line for Shell. He would claim the win in Copa Shell, and the win in Trofeo Pirelli would go the way of the reigning champion, Gilbert Yates. That summarises the race for you. It was a win for Gilbert Yates and a win for Mike Dewhurst. So let's go back down to Dave Richardson in the pit lane.
Well, far from being in the pit lane, I am here at the podium ready for everyone to salute our stars of today in Ferrari Challenge UK. And of course, first of all, it is our Pirelli drivers. And taking P3, give it up for Hemendra Pillai. Well done, Hemendra. P2, here comes Pranav Vangala. And on the top step of the podium, loud and proud, Gilbert Yates. And of course, the Copa Team Trophy will go the way of Charles Hurst, a representative from Charles Hurst here. Now, the trophies are going to be presented by the Ferrari North Europe Regional Manager, Federico Pastorelli's here. Hemendra Pillai then in receipt of his P3 trophy. Then here comes Pranav Vangala with his P2 trophy. And then the top step of the podium. P1 goes the way of Gilbert Yates. And of course, the Copa Team trophy to Charles Hurst. But we're not done yet because, of course, Matteo Vegana is here from Pirelli Motorsport to make the Pirelli trophy presentation to Gilbert Yates. So there we are. Hold your trophies high, gentlemen, please. Big smiles all round. Our Trofeo Pirelli, 1, 2, 3. Big smiles for the focus of the world's media that are on these three. And now it's time for the champagne. I rather think Pranav Vangala won that race. I'm not sure. There might be a steward's decision, you know. All I do know is that Gilbert Yates has been utterly, utterly soaked. So we will, of course, mop up and get ready for the next podium, which I can see to my left-hand side is Amanda Stretton here, who is just not having anything to do with you, David. You're on your own, yes. Big thank you to Claudio, who is working so hard on the podium to get it ready for Copa Shell. And as soon as he gives me the thumbs up, we'll be ready to go with Copa Shell right now. So stand by. Here comes the podium for Copa Shell, taking P1, P2, P3, but we do it in reverse order. P3, Peter Hunter. Oh, yes. P2 then, what a race. Paul Simerson. Use. And then, give it up for the man that did it, Mike Dewhurst. And of course, Copa Team will be represented by a representative from Dick Lovett Swindon. Fine dealership, you know. So the trophies once again to be presented by our Ferrari North Europe Regional Manager, Federico Pastorelli, who is here, makes the trophy presentation to Peter Hunter. Then to the suitably attired Mr. Paul Simerson. And then, of course, on the top step of the podium after giving us a fantastic race, Mike Dewhurst. And there also, the Copa Teams trophy is presented to Dick Lovett Swindon. So, ladies, gentlemen, and Peter Hunter, please lift your trophies up high. Big smiles all round. All the you really are beyond a joke, Peter Hunter. All onto the top step of the podium. No, that's fine, Peter Hunter. You can hear me perfectly well enough, friend. So there we have it, with the smiles done, the trophies, the photographs. Who's going to be first with the champagne? I think it was Hunter, you know. I think it was Peter Hunter. So that's it from the podium. Back to you, gentlemen. Up high in the Tower of Power.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great to see the podium celebrations down there at pit lane entry end of the Oulton Park pit lane. We've been blessed with some beautiful, beautiful weather. Let's just look back at some of the cars in slow motion action around here. Peter Hunter finished in 3rd place overall in Copa Shell at the wheel of the Stratstone Manchester car. It was a solid start to the weekend for him. Paul Simerson looked as though he was on for the win in Coperchel. He led all but the most important lap, the final one, where he was just overtaken by the man who went through to claim the win in Coperchel, that being Mike Dewhurst, who has just celebrated in fine style on the top step of the Oulton Park podium. So those are our Coperchel top three. It was Pranav Vangala in Trofeo Pirelli who claimed through to claim third place overall in the Trofeo Pirelli race. In second place overall in Trofeo Pirelli was Pranav Vangala, who just made one small mistake coming out of Island Bend that probably cost him the opportunity to build some pressure on Gilbert Yates, who came through from pole position to claim the win in our first of two races this weekend. The second race taking part tomorrow, and of course there will be a separate qualifying session for that as well. So from Amanda Abbott and Dave Richardson down there in the pit lane, from myself, Mark Werrell, joined in the commentary box by Johnny Palmer. Thanks for joining us today for the opening day of action from the Ferrari Challenge UK at Oulton Park. We'll see you again in sunny Cheshire tomorrow. Ta-ra.